Today we're going to talk about the life of the Egyptian queen Cleopatra, a woman who managed to carry on romances with two of the greatest men of her era and became a true legend. But how did this Egyptian woman manage to charm the rulers of the ancient world? And why did her wild love affair with Antony ultimately lead to the loss of her kingdom? Sit back and get comfortable. We'll give you answers to these and many other questions. Cleopatra was the last pharaoh of the Ptolemaic dynasty, which was founded by Ptolemy I Soter. She was born in 69 BC. The last Egyptian pharaohs were not actually Egyptian. The founder of the dynasty had been a general in the army of Alexander the Great. After the death of the great conqueror, he became the king of Egypt. Cleopatra's reign came at a time when Egypt was under the looming threat of becoming a Roman colony. Everyone understood that the arrival of Roman legions in the country was only a matter of time. At that very moment, Cleopatra herself was fighting for power. The first attempt to overthrow the queen was made by her own 15-year-old husband. In 48 BC, an uprising began in Alexandria. Cleopatra fled to Syria together with her younger sister Arsinoe. But Cleopatra was not the kind of person who gave up easily. Very soon, she marched an army toward the Egyptian border to confront her husband, her brother, and the officials who supported him. At the same time, a struggle for power was unfolding in the Roman Republic between Julius Caesar and Pompey. After losing the Battle of Pharsalus, Pompey fled to Alexandria, hoping to find political asylum there. But the advisors who had come to power in the Egyptian capital believed it would be unwise to anger Caesar. So Pompey was murdered, right before the eyes of the pharaoh. 3 days later, when Caesar arrived in Alexandria, he was presented with a peculiar gift from Ptolemy XIII, the severed head of Pompey. The advisors had miscalculated. Before the civil war, Pompey had been a friend of Caesar, and the gruesome gift horrified him. Caesar ordered the fighting to stop and commanded the brother and sister to appear at the palace to explain themselves. Cleopatra understood perfectly well that if she simply entered Alexandria openly, her brother's supporters would kill her immediately. The queen devised a brilliant plan. She was secretly brought into the palace, wrapped inside a carpet as a gift for the great Caesar. The carpet was unrolled. Caesar fell under her spell. That very night, they became lovers. In reality, their meeting most likely took place under far more ordinary circumstances. In any case, Cleopatra easily managed to captivate the famous general. A great romance began. The great Caesar took an active role in the conflict between brother and sister. He sided with Cleopatra. Contrary to popular belief, the last Egyptian queen was not as stunningly beautiful as many claim. Ancient coins have preserved her image: a long hooked nose, a prominent chin, and somewhat masculine facial features. Historians generally agree that Cleopatra possessed a slender and graceful figure. She had honey-toned skin, but what truly set her apart was not her appearance. It was her extraordinary thirst for knowledge. In Alexandria, the intellectual capital of the ancient world, she had every opportunity to cultivate her mind. To the admiration of Roman historians, Cleopatra spoke Greek, Arabic, Persian, Hebrew, Aramaic, and Parthian. She also learned Egyptian, a language that none of her predecessors in the dynasty had bothered to master. The princess deeply respected Egyptian culture and sincerely believed herself to be the living embodiment of the goddess Isis. After Cleopatra's affair with Caesar began, Alexandria pledged loyalty to the Roman ruler. The throne returned to Cleopatra, who formally married her only surviving brother, Ptolemy XIV. who had just turned 12. Yet the most important man in the queen's life remained Caesar. After his victory, the great Roman and the Egyptian queen embarked on a 2-month journey along the Nile. It was during this time that Cleopatra became pregnant and later gave birth to a son named Ptolemy, the 15th Caesarion. Caesar acknowledged the boy as his son, and 3 Roman legions were stationed in Alexandria to protect the queen. A year later, Cleopatra moved to Rome with her son and husband to attend celebrations marking the end of the war. For 2 years, they lived in a villa near the capital. Her lover adored her. A golden statue of the queen was placed in the Temple of Venus. Caesar even attempted to change the law in order to marry Cleopatra and make Caesarion his sole heir. But Caesar already had a lawful wife, Calpurnia, a woman whom few remembered even then, and even fewer remember now. On one hand, some admired her intelligence and eloquence. On the other, many were captivated by her exotic appearance and sharp mind. Yet Roman matrons and aristocratic women despised the foreign queen. On March 15th, 44 BC, the famous Senate meeting took place, during which a group of conspirators assassinated Caesar. Ptolemy XIV did not live much longer. Incidentally, many historians believe that Cleopatra herself poisoned her young brother husband, unwilling to share power with him. After Caesar's death, Cleopatra declared Caesarion her heir and left Rome, returning to Egypt. Power in Rome was divided among 3 men: Caesar's adopted heir, Octavian, Mark Lepidus, and Mark Antony. In 42 BC, Mark Antony summoned Cleopatra to Tarsus to determine whether she had supported his enemies. The queen arrived on a magnificent barge, dressed as Venus, surrounded by attendants dressed as sea nymphs and boys portraying cupids. Mark Antony was enchanted. He abandoned his duties and followed the queen to Alexandria. All winter long, feasts, celebrations, and indulgence filled the palace halls. With great difficulty, Antony eventually returned to Rome. 6 months after his departure, Cleopatra gave birth to twins, Cleopatra Selene and Alexander Helios. She would not see their father again for 4 years. By that time, Mark Antony had married Octavia, the sister of Octavian. In that marriage, he fathered 2 daughters. In 37 BC, Antony began another military campaign, but soon once again found himself in Cleopatra's embrace. She became his wife, at least in practice. Formally, Antony had never divorced Octavia. Unexpectedly, Octavia set out to visit her wandering husband. In Athens, she was met with a letter from Antony informing her that she should not travel any further. He would come to her himself. Upon learning this, Cleopatra used every possible charm and strategy to prevent Antony from meeting his lawful wife. She succeeded. Antony canceled the visit. Octavia returned to Rome without ever seeing her husband. The Romans were outraged by such treatment of a legitimate wife. The final straw came when Antony proclaimed Cleopatra's children rulers of vast eastern territories. Alexander Helios was declared king of Armenia. Cleopatra Selene, queen of Crete. Ptolemy Philadelphus, king of Syria. Caesarion was proclaimed king of kings, and Cleopatra herself, queen of kings. An outraged Octavian declared war on Egypt. In the decisive naval Battle of Actium, Cleopatra abruptly left the battlefield, effectively abandoning her lover. For 3 days afterward, Antony refused to see Cleopatra or speak to her, but there was no way out. After reconciling, the lovers returned to Egypt, where they received devastating news. Mark Antony's forces had been surrounded and destroyed. It was time to prepare for death. Cleopatra began experimenting with different poisons to determine which would bring a quick and painless end. In 30 BC, Octavian's troops approached Alexandria. Mark Antony's army surrendered to the victor. After the Battle of Actium, no one doubted that Antony had lost his head because of a woman and was no longer capable of independent thought. Cleopatra ordered her servants to tell Antony that she was dead. In despair, he stabbed himself with a dagger. Still alive, Mark struggled to reach Cleopatra's mausoleum, but the queen was afraid to open the door. Mortally wounded, Mark Antony was forced to climb through a window in order to die romantically in the arms of his beloved. When Octavian's soldiers surrounded the mausoleum, Cleopatra first attempted suicide, but she was disarmed and taken prisoner. After Antony's funeral, she attempted several more times to take her own life, but the warned guards prevented her each time. The queen had no illusions about her future. She was destined to be paraded through the streets of Rome in chains, but Cleopatra managed to avoid that humiliation. Loyal servants brought her a basket of figs and a small venomous snake. After her meal, Cleopatra wrote a letter asking Octavian to bury her beside Mark Antony, and then she died from the snake's venom. Cleopatra VII was the last pharaoh. After her death, Egypt became one of Rome's provinces. Her son Caesarion was strangled on Octavian's orders by his own tutor. Cleopatra's daughter, Cleopatra Selene, married the king of Mauritania. The fate of Alexander Helios and Ptolemy Philopator remains unknown. Thus ended one of the greatest love stories in history, a love that cost Antony and Cleopatra both their kingdom and their lives. And what would you be willing to risk for love? Write your answer in the comments. Also tell us which people, events, or mysteries you would like to see in future episodes. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like. See you next time.